Hi, welcome back to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm Rob O'Day, and I'm always with Rylan Kinnan behind the camera. And tonight we're talking with Kay Thornton from FacultyX Paranormal. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite amazing. I'm really excited for this interview because it's not one that I think a lot of people would see coming. So why don't you begin by introducing yourself, where you're from, and what inspired you to become a paranormal investigator?
Okay, well, I've been in Canada since 2004. Emigrated, as you can tell, I'm from the northwest of England. And back home, I was a researcher. I was a local historian, amateur local historian. And it's a passion. It's just something that I love to get involved with. But when I came out here, I found that research ability could be used in a different capacity. And I never thought about that. I never intended for that to happen. It just did. I met another paranormal investigator who was interested in what I'd done and took me on board to do research. And of course, it didn't stop there. You know, you do research and then you want to go on an investigation. And you do one investigation, and you do another investigation, and that's it, you're hooked. So I did have paranormal experience from back home. So I think that's really helped with the getting into the whole idea of it.
I can imagine with such in-depth history too, in England and being where a lot of cultural societies' thought processes have come from. I guess it would have a lot of history that I don't think people would expect to be there or remain, I guess would be a better way to explain it. To have paranormal experiences with a country that has so much history, I feel would be more something that would be more likely, I guess. Like Canada being such a young country, there's buildings in England that are 3 times the age of Canada. So to have that transition from such a cultural, a long time running culture, moving to a area where culture is still so fresh, do you find there's a lot of paranormal activity in Canada that you've noticed, or in North America?
I think what you have to remember is, like you've mentioned, in England you have, well, in the UK, in Europe, you have so much history. So when I came out to Canada, it was a culture shock because it was, you know, people are talking, oh, this is a heritage building. And I'm, yeah, okay, let's go with that. You know, I mean, I have friends that lived in a house that was 400 years old. I had a 12th century abbey on my doorstep, and that was actually quite interesting because this abbey had its fair share of paranormal activity. There was, you know, trains going past and they would see the monks from the Cistercian abbey. And there was one little cottage that nobody would go past at night. And it wasn't until 4 years ago, maybe, that we actually found out that my great-grandparents actually owned this cottage. So I actually kick myself now that I never got to investigate a cottage that was actually haunted and belonged to the family. So again, coming out here, all of a sudden, you know, you start looking for history. And you think, well, there can't be that much history. And that's where I've had to re-educate myself, because the history out here it's there and it's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's different, but it's still there. And so if you've got the history, you've got the paranormal activity.
Yep. And the history here is, North American history is a weird one too, because it is leaving from England here, creating a new society and building off that, but Canada is like the final frontier. You know, like if you're a Star Trek fan, like space is the final frontier. Like BC was the final frontier in my eyes. We have such a young culture and such young history, but that's just the colonialized history. If you can pick up on what I mean, because there's so much history prior to what was written that's still here, and I wonder, well, not wonder. I'd love to investigate or even see an evidence of that history, I guess to say, because you do have the Aboriginal history, and then you have the frontier history and the different time periods, and there's not like there's a huge gap of them, but there's a lot that happened in those small time periods that have caused, I don't want to say rifts, you know what I mean, but it is embedded itself in our history, and it is so thick and deep. It's crammed together. So I feel like that could be an interesting concept for paranormal investigators in Canada, is where in time is this actually from?
There's an awful lot, as I'm learning, I'm very, very new to learning the history of Canada, as you can imagine. So you're looking, as you say, you've got the Aboriginal, you've got the Chinese, you've got the Japanese, you've got the pioneers that were coming over, which, and I still feel this, that a lot of Canadians still have the pioneer spirit, especially when you look at the women, the way they do the canning of the foods, and the guys still go out and they go hunting and they fetch in, the deer and the meat, and it's just, it's real, it's happening now, but it's only 100 years or so back that, and it's still touching, people alive today are still talking about the first pioneers. Oh yeah, that was my great-grandma, that was my, great-grandfather. And they talk about them as if it was yesterday. So it's still very, very new. I think one of the hardest things I've found being a researcher is when you're researching something for the paranormal, looking for maps, looking for the written history, and a lot isn't there. And it's very, very hard. I've gone delving down to the museums, to the libraries. A couple of the girls on my team, Jen, Steph and myself, we spent over 30 odd hours researching one particular incident. And it was frustrating not to be able to find the written history or the maps that we needed. They just don't exist. Nobody thought, we'll create these. And so that's frustrating, because back in the UK, you can go to the museums and the libraries and they're pulling up parchment, that was drawn hundreds of years ago, and you can still see it. And yet you come to a country that is so young with its history, and there's nothing. And I'm thinking, gosh, people, you need to get this written down. You need to collect it before it disappears.
And that is true. I think there's a lot of forgotten history of Canada because of that topic. I find it interesting how you mentioned that it's like we're still in the pioneer days, like that mentality. That is, I've never heard that before. So then thinking of that, like it is very true, because I guess you wouldn't see hunting and that kind of stuff in England as frequent, I guess, as a hobby here, because like there's no big cats, like there's no big predators in the UK that I know of. I know that there's some cryptids, but we won't talk about cryptids or touch base on those. It's a total different story. But I find that, that is a really unique concept to think about, and even the mentality of that, like 100 years ago, we were still like a gold rush less than 100 years ago. Like we were still in those like gold rush mentalities where we were escaping from the East and the States to come to the Western provinces for the gold and the riches. So it is a really young history, but it's really crazy when you start to dive into our local history and you start to see how beautiful it is. And like you said, the heritage houses, heritage being 150 years old or slightly older, but there is an incredible amount of evidence in some of these places too within BC. Like Barkerville is globally known for being a haunted ghost town, and you have the mine at Headley. There's another one that has lots of credible people who have come through. And I think with the field that you've chose as a paranormal investigator, it's a career and a lifestyle that most don't understand.
No.
There's a lot of skepticism behind it, which is understandable when we live in a science-based realm. But you are a researcher and an investigator who uses scientific tools to get this evidence. So to kind of disprove that it's not a reliable thing, or to investigating it is not reliable. If the science is there, the tools for the science is there, and the evidence is there, I don't see how it can be discredited. And you have a selection of tools that you've pulled out to show us, and a lot of these are the ones you'd see on TV, or if you are into YouTube groups who do paranormal, or just smaller groups, they are globally used tools in the profession.
Yeah, totally are. And we, I mean, this is only a very small selection. I was having an investigation last night, so most of these, the batteries have died in them, they all need recharging. Some of the tools that you actually see, some of the equipment you will see on the television shows and that, I would class them as stops.
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
very
I mean,
Hollywoodized.
yeah, you know, I mean, they use an awful lot out there. I don't want to diss the equipment. We all have our own views. Some people love this, they hate that.
Yeah.
And these few things that I've got here, I mean, you'll see them on the TV, apart from the onion.
Yep.
You won't often see an onion.
No, and we will dive into the onion here shortly.
We'll get into the onion. But you have things, I mean, the basic trail cam. There's one show that uses that quite prolifically, and funnily enough, it has an X in the name. The EDI there is a data logger, and this is my newest piece of equipment.
Okay, so what does it do exactly?
So we set off with, you'd like me to get this? Yeah.
That's okay.
So this gadget here, it shows you things, vibration. Now, if you're in a building and you can hear or you can feel things vibrating, you want to be able to log that. If something falls off a counter, you want to say, well, hey, was that a truck going past? Was that a minor earthquake that just happened? Where does it fall into the event? And do we have anything else that will collaborate that glass falling off a counter? So you've got vibration, you've got your EMF, you've got humidity, you've got air pressure, you've got temperature. And what this does, I've only used it twice now, but then you put it up onto your laptop and it will pull up a graph. So if you have an event of all these things that are on here, it will give you what happened at that event. So the vibration happened, it spiked, but also at the same time, the temperature dropped.
And there was an EMF reading.
And there was an EMF reading.
Oh, okay.
So it shows you that sort of spike. And if you're using your voice recorder, this one's mine, this is my baby. And So you're using your voice recorder. Now, if that collaborates with somebody going, hey, did you hear that? Or did you feel that? Or it's just gone cold, and the time on that collaborates with this one, then you're starting to gather that data, so hence a data logger that you can work along with your voice recorder.
And any other tools as well.
And any other tools. So I think a lot of people will have seen the REM pods. And again, this one, it will pick up your EMF. One of the lights will light up. Unfortunately, the battery died in this one last night. But basically, you've got your antenna, and so it's a proximity. They use these all the time on the shows. Everybody uses the REM pods. You'll see them on the staircases. But what people don't realise when they're actually using these sort of gadgets is it's important to know where you're putting them. You can't just go and plop them down anywhere. You've got to be very aware of any Wi-Fi in the area, anything that will give off that electromagnetic frequency.
Okay.
Things will set them off. You know, you go too close to your microwave, you go too close to an oven, your TVs, etc.
You can physically set them off too yourself.
You
correct?
can. You would come in like this, and you'd enter its magnetic field, and it will set the lights off, and it will set temperature off, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, this is one of your basics, if you will.
And they're super cool.
They are.
You see them everywhere. Yeah, they're really interesting.
Yeah. This is the Rook. This is just another one that I've just bought. And again, basically, it's like your K2s. It picks up your EMF signals, so as it gets stronger, you'll get more lights, and if something is really close to it or it's a really strong EMF field, it's going to shout at you. So you get the audible.
So would that pick up a phone? Or would that be, can you set that off with your hand like the REM pod?
No.
Okay, so
No,
that is strictly for...
Yeah, if you go up to your microwave oven or too many gadgets, your TVs, your DVDs, etc., etc., it will start to light up.
But when you're using these, you're using them to get it'll be more like a strong burst of EMF that will be in an area to set it off.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. But again, a lot of people who are very new to the field, they might say, oh, well, it's something paranormal that's setting it off. But you need to debunk that. You need to see what's in the room with you. When the electrics were changed over, old water pipes, so there's all sorts of things that can set it off. Somebody keying on a walkie-talkie on a two-way, cell phones, anything like that. You need to test that out first. You need to get rid of that factor. Eliminate that first before you can even start thinking, hey, is this paranormal?
And you as an investigator, as we were talking before, we kind of have the same view as it's not paranormal until it can't be debunked, kind of a sense, where you will debunk everything possible until there's no logical answer for that experience, that evidence, or that moment that happened.
Yeah, I mean, one example that I can give, we were in a location and we'd all slept there this particular night, and I was up really early in the morning going around taking photographs, and I'd gone to the bedroom of two of the girls, and I was sat on the bed and we were chatting away, and the door opens. And we sort of all look at each other, and I get up and close the door again, go and sit down, we're talking away. The door opens. And okay, once is interesting, twice is starting to get what's going on. So, you know, you go and you look out in the corridor, there's nobody there, and you test the door jambs. So, you know, no, the door's quite locked in here. And you check the sneck on the door to make sure there's no possible way. You're bouncing up and down on the floor. All these sort of things you start testing for. You don't just take it, oh, it's a ghost. It's an entity, there's something there. You debunk as much as you can. Sat down for a third time, and the door opened again. And it was, just come in, come and join us. But the interesting thing about that, I had my camera, because I've been taking pictures, and I'd taken off the little plastic cover on the view screen. I put it down on the bed. I came to go, and the little plastic cover had gone. So we checked for the bed, nothing. We checked under the bed, we checked all over. This plastic cover had gone, it had vanished. I asked the staff when they came back in the morning, if you find this, it's mine, will you let you know? 2 years later, it turns up on my bedside table. You explain that to me.
Wow. Yeah, that doesn't... No, I got nothing. I'm trying and I got nothing.
That was weird, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a lot of what paranormal, I guess, investigating is these weird moments that have no logical explanation, even after you've debunked everything. Because in our nature as human beings, we want to, if something scares us, we want to find out what it is. You know what I mean? If something is confusing us, we want to figure out what it is. It's nature. Curiosity killed the cat. And that leading into a career trying to discover something or find evidence of something that most either can't wrap their head around or believe there is an afterlife, or there's ones who don't believe there's an afterlife. And I think that the career choice that you've gone down is a very unique one, trying to find scientific evidence for what is after. And I think anybody, even skeptics, can agree that that is a topic that needs to be uncovered.
Yeah.
Whether it's you're watching Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters, or you're watching Mind Seeds, or you're watching, it doesn't matter who you watch. It comes down to one thing at the end of the day, and that is trying to prove that there is an afterlife. Scientifically prove an afterlife, not just agree to, okay, everything's paranormal, everything's a ghost, spooky grandma is haunting us. It's not that. And I think that that's the biggest misconception behind the field of paranormal investigating, is that it is a joke, like if you're gonna discredit a science, I guess we can't even classify it as a scientific study.
It's a pseudoscience.
It is, right? But even that, like, everything was a pseudoscience until it was proven right. We were, as human beings in science, the science realm itself, this is what we've proven, that's right, that's reality. Oh wait, that's actually reality. Oh wait, that's actually reality. We're always pushing this line back. We had, like, Pluto isn't even a planet anymore. We change things constantly. So science is willing to change and accept change, but it won't accept change on this particular subject.
No.
And that's very confusing to me.
It's very hard, and no scientist right now will put his or her name to a paper, because it's their whole career that will be on the line. If they said, yes, there is afterlife, or there is something else out there, my personal belief, I don't honestly believe that every entity has to be a person that's died.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get into that mindset that a ghost, something that's haunting, is somebody that has died.
Or a physical thing that's
Yeah.
there.
To me, I mean, you talk about, going down the rabbit hole. With me, it's more like finding a warren. Mm-hmm. There isn't just one hole there. There's this whole warren to go down. And people talk, oh, I see shadow men. So what's a shadow person? And I have this, I mean, and this is just my personal sort of theory, if you think of a Venn diagram but spread out, you have your history back here, and then we have our future, but we overlap the history. So is that little ellipse in the middle, are they the people from the past that have died? Are we catching a glimpse of them? But then the shadow people, so if now this is us and the shadow people, are they from the future? Are they future shadows? And what we're seeing is something from the future. But what they're seeing is us as
I'm
the
picking up what you're
history.
putting down, yeah.
You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, so when we see a shadow figure, to us it's a shadow figure and versus a spirit, but like to the future people, the shadow figures, we would look like the spirit to them.
Of the
And it's like
history.
like three circles
Yes.
linked together. Yes, like
You've got
a
it.
Triforce.
Yeah.
You can't beat the Triforce. Zelda's the best.
And
But-
it just keeps on going.
And and I think that is a really cool theory too, because everyone has a different theory towards it, right? Everyone has a different theory towards the afterlife, and I think that is what makes this career choice, lifestyle, hobby for some, it a very interesting thing, because like Thomas Edison probably looked crazy when he first wanted to make a light bulb. You know, and he was one of the first guys trying like 1,000 times to do different filaments to create the perfect light bulb that worked. Probably looked like an idiot. And people probably judged him on it. Oh, that's not going to ever work. It turned into science. And now we have electrical engineers. And it is a whole thing. So like, it takes time to understand the unknown. And I think discrediting it, shutting it down, or judging the people who do the work is almost like insulting scientists or inventors from that have made our society what it is. So I think that it's just, it takes time, like history, right? We have such a young history, so even the history of paranormal investigating isn't that old. It's
You can
really,
go-
you can go into, I guess if you want to classify like exorcisms and like spiritual practices from the like history as paranormal investigating, then it's really old. But I'm like, the paranormal investigating that you do, that we see now, that we know, is really only less than 100 years old.
If you go back to Victorian times, I mean, they were huge on the spiritualism and the tilting tables, and then you have the likes of Harry Houdini, and he was adamant that he was going to debunk, and he did. He went in there and he pulled out the fakes and he showed them for being charlatans. And if it wasn't for the likes of those early Victorians that were really into that sort of thing, even down to the photography of the day, producing the spirit photography. And now, as paranormal investigators, we often get pictures sent to us of, I got a ghost. Look at this picture. And there's so many apps out there where you can add a ghost to your pictures. And that really goes back to even just at the start of photography. It's not a new thing. It's quite an old thing. But now people are using it. And we've got to try and debunk these pictures coming in. And, you know, you have databases. I mean, there's just been a case on TV, I'm not going to mention any names, where pictures could have been altered. And you start to go into and look at the metadata. And there is a website which we use quite frequently where we can go in, where people have submitted pictures to us. And we actually use this, and we go in and we look at the metadata for the picture that's been submitted. And that will tell us, or it won't tell us per se, but it will give us an idea that, yeah, this isn't matching up with the original picture. So there's a good chance it's been altered. It's gone through Photoshop. So again, paranormal investigation isn't just about going into a semi-haunted building, call it what you will, with your flashlight and, you know,
Digital recorder.
digital recorder or any of your other toys. There's so much more to it. There's so many different layers. And once you really get into it, it just becomes this warren. It's not just the one burrow. You know, it's not just the one hole. Once you go down it, you know, you're in the matrix, buddy.
Yep, it's true. And I think that you kind of touched on a point there where, as paranormal investigators, like, it's, you're trying to create the proper procedures to do these investigations, because there is no book on how to do it. You know, there's no paranormal investigating for dummies. It doesn't work like that.
Yes, there is. I've got it in my...
Is there actually?
There
Oh my
is.
God, I take it back. That is amazing, and I'm buying it.
Yeah. Yes, there
That's
is
incredible.
paranormal investigation for dummies. Now then,
Oh, The Onion. Yes, thank you, Rylan, for reminding us.
The Onion. Let me hide my tag. So why is this paranormal? Or what do you think this poor onion that I found in my pantry has to do with paranormal investigations?
For me, it's life and death. It's growing new onions while it's rotting. I don't know why, but that's what my gut told me at first instinct.
So somebody comes along to you and they say, I think my house is haunted. And I think it's Great Auntie Gertie. So Great Auntie Gertie is your first layer.
Oh, okay.
Not only that, but when you start to take off another layer from Great Auntie Gertie, you find out how she died. So let's take off that layer. This poor shriveled up old onion, which is now Auntie Gertie. So you find out how Auntie Gertie died. But where did Auntie Gertie die? So you take off another layer. You see where I'm going with this?
Yep.
And then you start, well, maybe it's not Great Auntie Gertie at all. Maybe it's something to do with the land. So you start researching the land. And you start peeling off another layer. And we're both going to start crying in a minute because we're getting down to the layers. So my floor's going to be covered in onion and I'm going to stink of onion, but that's okay.
Onions smell good. I may be one of the only people on the planet who
I like
thinks
cheese and onion sandwiches, actually. I think that's an English thing. So then you're looking at the land. And then you start going back further and further. But somewhere along the line, when you get right into the middle, and I don't have a knife on me, you suddenly find out that things start to branch off.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, okay, now which line am I following here? And sometimes when you get into an onion, you'll find out that you have two separate bulbs within the one. And we did this when we were doing an investigation. We started off with one name and it led us to another incident. And that incident then led to another incident. But then we found out that we weren't just investigating over here. This whole thing was now over here as well. And then we found out, oh, hang on a minute, this onion has now got three because it's branched out. So an investigation that we've been conducting has now branched into 3 investigations and all stemming from one name and one incident. So that's why I use an onion as a tool.
I like that. I think visual representation too would help a lot of people with like the understanding of we're not just looking for ghosts. You know, you're looking for the history. You're looking for what happened. And
Exactly.
that's the most important thing. It's not, how many times have you actually walked into a location and got nothing after spending an entire night investigating.
Loads of times.
Right? Like, it's not like what you see on TV where you walk in and all the cupboards fly open and the doors are breaking off the hinges. That's Hollywood. Ghosts don't do that. I don't think anything. Would you do that as a human?
No.
You know, like, it's just. I feel like my personal theory on what people take as spirits or entities is just energies left. Like, energies are a very strong thing, and I think that people are starting to understand it more now. That energies can influence things on major levels. If you look at any movement in the past 70 years, most of it was caused by a feeling.
And
that was
energy
pushed.
doesn't die.
It doesn't, because since the Big Bang it's been there, and that's science, right? Like, what was there from the beginning is still there today. You know what I mean? Like, it can never leave, it can never disappear. So that includes energy. So I feel that would be more logical than Great Aunt Gertie just hanging out because she wants. You know what I mean? Like, I think it would be energies and moments, key moments in lives, and certain lives, and people's emotional states, and that really, like, embed into a location, I guess, or the ground.
So that
per se.
being said, then, why don't we have any dinosaur ghosts?
We just might not be in tune to them, because we may have them, but we don't know what dinosaurs were like. We were never around them.
Or perhaps it's because that energy from dinosaur that died, it's still there, but it just gets less and less. Because even now, you know, we say, oh, well, we see ghosts from, say, Gettysburg. We see the soldiers.
Yep.
But you don't generally see anybody going further and further. In England, you might get the ghosts of, let's say, Anne Boleyn, or the monks, or, you know, going a few more 100 years back. But again, you don't get cave dwellers. You don't get the dinosaurs. But that energy is still there.
Yep.
It's just that we don't perceive it anymore.
Yeah, I think that, or the emotional state that Gettysburg would have left, that World War II would have left, like, key things like that, where you have people in absolute turmoil and the worst emotional state that they could ever possibly be in. And I think that that's why we see, like, war spirits from Gettysburg and stuff like that, or monks, because they're putting in so much energy and faith into that life that they are. They're like, the church is their world. Monks, that is their lifestyle, is their world. So the energy that they're investing into it, I think, is what really causes the sightings, I guess to say, because the energy is so strong that it just can't leave at that point.
Yeah.
It can't dissipate. And I think that's what's the cool thing about this this career choice or hobby, or whichever lifestyle you ever want to call paranormal investigating. It never ends. It is the rabbit hole beginning. It is the white rabbit that you see running saying, I'm late, that leads you to Wonderland. Because once you start thinking about, well, are spirits real? Are energies real? Well, then you start getting lost into, well, there's a whole world of cryptids. And there's a whole world of other things. So, like, it is a huge, just mind boggle. And I think that it's easier for people to say it doesn't exist than to try and get lost in the thought.
Yeah, they become very blinkered. You know, I don't want to know. That's what you want to do, fine, until it touches them. I mean, I've always laughed about it. You have a fire. I mean, I'm going to get corny here. You have a fire. Who are you going to call?
Right.
You have an incident where you have to call the police. You fall over and break your leg. You're going to call for an ambulance. You have a ghost. Who are you going to call?
Right.
And
Bill Murray.
So yeah, and it's amazing, and what is amazing is you've got this whole paranormal family, really, of all over the world. There's so many paranormal investigators out there. I mean, I'm going to mention that our sister team is in Vancouver, Northern Paranormal. They're a member of the T.A.P.S family as well, and it's huge, you know, and we all help each other if we need understanding. Like, for example, with the REM pod last night, I was having some difficulty with it. It was doing something it shouldn't be doing. So my first, when I get up this morning, is I get in touch with the T.A.P.S family team. Hey guys, this is going on. Can somebody help me? Have you had the same? Oh yeah, you know, try this, try that. So you have this whole network. And again, it's like the onion. There's so many different layers that we can call on. This investigation that's split into 3 for us, I managed to contact somebody in New York, because that's where it reached out to. That's where it branched out to. And they said, oh yeah, just leave it with me, and you know, we'll see what we can do from this end. And it's amazing. It's just this huge family. It gets you. It becomes part of everything that you do, from getting up in the morning to going to bed at night, and anything in between. You know, I love it.
It's definitely, it's not for everyone, but it's definitely something that is always, and probably will always, intrigue me, is the afterlife. I'm not a religious person by any means. I don't believe in heaven or hell or any of those, but I believe that there is something, and I would love to know what it is, because it comes quick.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the worst part of being a paranormal investigator is you're always chasing after death until it happens. You know, you're always chasing after the dead, until the day you realize, oh, I didn't even live my life, but you did live your life doing this really intricate, interesting, unique, and not really accepted thing, which usually, if you think about it, rock and roll wasn't accepted for a long time. Now it's the most popular music on the planet. So I think that as long as people who believe and want to believe do so, and keep pushing the barriers of scientifically, pseudoscientifically, I think that in time, I think it will be an actually accepted, not science, but I believe it will get to a point where you can credibly calculate the afterlife and people will not discredit it. And I hope it gets to that point, because there's a lot of people out there, and not a small group. Like you mentioned, you and your sister team are the only 2 groups in BC that are part of T.A.P.S.
Yes.
T.A.P.S is a global community of paranormal investigators, not a small group, a giant global group of people with the same like mind doing the same thing. And I think that if there's that many people out there doing this, there's something there.
And when you think along those lines, that's only a small majority of the other teams that are still out there. You know, and they're all doing their little bit. And you get new investigators coming along. I've got a 7-year-old granddaughter, and she would desperately love to come out and investigate. She has got no fear of this whatsoever. She gets quite upset. She was upset last night because I couldn't take her. You know?
It's understandable. I'm like, how cool would it be to see a kid paranormal? Like, because there's theories that kids are more susceptible to spirits because they haven't been taught to close it off.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that.
I do too. And you can, like, those kids that have invisible friends, like, oh, I'm just hanging out with Johnny. Like, ask him who Johnny is. Ask what Johnny looks like. Ask what Johnny likes to do. And then maybe do some research into the land.
My son, and I have to tell you a cute story. My son had his own invisible friend. And he used to go in his bedroom and he'd play with his invisible friend for hours and hours and hours, until one day I went to check on him and I opened the hall door and I closed the hall door and I said to my friend, I said, can you open this and tell me what you see at the end of the hall? So she came, she opened the door and she looked and she went, there's a small child down there. And, you know, the strangest thing after that, we'd see a soccer ball rolled across the floor. And it was almost like this invisible friend had gone, well, you've seen me now. You know, I'm here, you know I'm here. So I've had this all my life. I grew up in a house that had, we called it the thing in the bedroom. And that's all we could call it. And we never spoke about it until literally after both my parents died, my brother and sister, and we were sat around one day and we said, did you ever feel anything in the bedroom? Did you feel that too? And it was like, you know, when you get two magnets and you're trying to force them together and you get that buffering, that resistance. And that was what it was like. It was, you're not wanted in this room, leave. And if you couldn't leave, if it was nighttime, you'd pull the covers over your head and you'd wait and wait and wait until you could go, okay, it's gone. But it let you know. And the curious thing about that, obviously I'm here now, I was on Facebook and this guy gets in touch with me and he says, I bought your parents' old house. I said, oh yeah. And slowly I could see where this was going. He says, did you ever have any strange things? I said, middle bedroom. And he says, oh, thank goodness for that. He says, I thought I was losing it. He says, yeah. He said, it was like this strange heaviness in that room that didn't want you there. Exactly the same thing that we felt. So then we had this confirmation that it wasn't just us. It was the next person that was in that house. So, yeah, so I've grown up with this. So I suppose you could say that it was inevitable that this is where I'd end up.
That's amazing. If you had any advice for someone who was aspiring or wanted to get into paranormal investigating but was too, I guess I'll use the word, too scared to do it for fear of judgment, what would you tell them?
Seek out a good team. Seek out a team that has a good reputation. Ask them if you can tag along as probation and see how it goes. See if you can handle it. Not everybody can handle it. You know, it's not something that's easy to do. And take it slowly. Don't go out and buy all the gadgets. You don't need the gadgets. You need a flashlight, you need a voice recorder. That's all you need to start off with.
You don't even need a good camera, really. Most of them are night vision and they're not 4K night vision cameras.
In fact, I will say one of NPI's investigators, she caught the most brilliant picture on her cell phone. It wasn't high tech. In fact, as Karen would quite happily say, she is techless. And so she was just using her cell phone and clicking, and then she went, my God, look at this.
Right.
And it is the most phenomenal picture you've ever seen. And I can't show it because the place we were at, the location, is confidential. And even if we were to put it up on Facebook or something like that, people would just say, oh, that's an app. You know?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest thing for people to do nowadays.
So
is it doesn't exist.
A new investigator, join a group. Join a good group that has a very strong ethos, that they're not going to be the type that break into buildings. Because doing something like that, it doesn't just get them into trouble, it gets the whole paranormal world into trouble. We lose credibility.
Yep.
And in this science, we can't do that. We don't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
I'm being thrown this.
He's tossing the shirt.
He's tossing the shirt at me, so there we go.
That is their groups.
This is us.
I love it. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, because
Oh, you're more than welcome.
it's not every day you can find a paranormal investigator to sit down and talk to you. They're hard to find. It's not an easy group of people to find. Like, I've been looking for over 10 years, and in the last month and a half I found two.
Really?
You and
yet-
the team that I talked to with Out of Kamloops. Yeah, other than that, it's really hard to find people that are like-minded on a level like that.
And yet, if you just log on and go and search paranormal teams, BC, there's plenty out there.
There's lots out there. There's a lot of people out there. You start to realize, I think, within any community that there's out there right now, whether it's music community, the movement community, is anything, you don't realize how big it is until you actually look into it.
But I really do want to say, if anybody is interested in becoming a paranormal investigator, apart from finding a good group, you have to realise there's a lot of work involved. There's a whole lot of work. It's the research. You have to research where you're going or who you believe. There's the investigation, which is only a small part of it.
Probably the smallest.
It is, because then you've got to go home and you've got to review. And reviewing, you might have 4 hours of audio, but that 4 hours can double, because you're constantly going back, going, did I hear something? Go back. Did I hear something? No, I didn't hear something. And so you've got that. And again, the more equipment you have,
The more work there is.
the more work there is. There's more reviewing. You're not just doing your audio. You're looking at pictures. You're looking at videos. You're looking at data logging. So yeah, these gadgets are great.
But it's extra work.
It's extra work. So I would definitely say, go in with the basics. Stick to your basics. Use your common sense, and use your own ears, your own eyes. They're your best. That's your best equipment.
I don't think that. I don't think anyone could say it better. I think that's it. Yeah. Just start basic and work your way up with it, just like anything. You know, it takes practice, takes time.
Yeah.
I don't think
does.
it's especially this. It's going to take a lot of hard work, dedication, and get used to hearing a lot of negativity.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. People do not want to know.
Well, okay.
So-
I want to thank you so much for having us and being a part of this.
Very welcome. It's been a blast.
It has.
Enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys, and we will see you all next time.